Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the LymphaPress Educational Webinar Series. We try to mix things up every now and then. Sometimes we do lunchtime webinars, and sometimes we do early evening after people have had dinner, because we know that there's a lot of interest around tonight's topic. And the reason we know is we did a Google search on exercises for lymphedema, and very little came up. But we realized it was something people were really searching for. So we said, well, let's create some content around this. So I asked my friend Kathleen, listen, who should we invite to host this webinar? And she said, hands down, Lisa Silvestri. And we are so honored to have you with us today. She is going to talk about muscle pump activity. How does lymph move? She's going to be talking about exercising with lymphedema. And she is a concierge physical therapist who really is devoted to wellness, well-being, and wellness. And she focuses on lymphedema patients. She is an expert in oncology. We at LymphaPress are so honored to have her with us today. Lisa, and you are in California, aren't you?
I am near the Bay Area, yes.
How lovely. Well, we know it's a little earlier for you. We already have 45 people that have logged on. We want to encourage you to please let us know you're here in chat. Put your questions in the Q&A and we will answer them at the end. This webinar is being recorded by LymphaPress. There is one section that we wanted to show a video, and unfortunately, because of technical difficulties, it wouldn't play. I'm going to put that link in chat so you can grab it. And then the recorded version will have that so that you can watch it for the replay, which you will all get a link to after the fact. But without further ado, I'm going to disappear. And thank you, Lisa, for presenting. I'm all ears, and so is everyone else. Take it away.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Brenda, so much for inviting me to speak. And thank you to LymphaPress for having me. I am thrilled to be here, and I am thrilled to get started and talk about lymphedema and exercise. So without further ado, here we go. Oh, maybe. There we go. So what actually is lymphedema? I'm sure most of you who are logged on already know, but it is a high protein fluid accumulation within a body part. It's really important to understand that this is not just water accumulating in an area, but the high protein fluid that makes up lymphatic fluid, and that is what lymphedema is. We get it because of a dysfunction to our lymphatic system as a whole. Lymphedema is usually broken down into a primary cause and a secondary cause. Primary lymphedema is usually due to a congenital or a hereditary problem. And secondary lymphedema is due to a dysfunction or interruption of the lymphatic system, most often due to surgery, trauma, radiation, and things of that nature. I'll get it, I promise. When we talk about lymphedema, there are 4 stages: stage 0, stage 1, stage 2, and stage 3. As we progress through the stages, the lymphedema is progressing in nature. Now, I think that most of you know, when you realize you have lymphedema, the earlier you start treatment, including exercise, the more effective the treatment usually is. What I really, really want to get across today is that even when you are at stage 0, so you have a known trauma to your system, you've had a oncology surgery, you know that you have a history of primary lymphedema in your family, you may be seeing only mild or minor symptoms, so a stage 1. The earlier you start with your complete decongestive therapy, including exercise, the more beneficial the treatment will be. So even if you start with just some light walking or some basic exercises, it's really going to be effective in treating your condition. Okay, so when we talk about exercise, what are we actually talking about? We're talking about any physical activity that maintains or enhances our physical fitness, as well as our overall health and wellness. There are usually four main components that make up exercise: aerobic training or aerobic activity, resistance training, so lifting weights, balance training, and flexibility. It's really important that all four of these aspects are included in an exercise program, and that when you're performing your exercise program, you're doing enough activity to actually increase your heart rate and make a difference in your body. So how does lymph flow? Lymph is, like I said, a high protein edema that travels through a very complex network of vessels towards regional lymph nodes, and eventually it always travels up towards the terminus. Now you can see in these little squares, the terminus is the end or the terminal point of our lymphatic system. The lymphatic system ends at the junction of the right and left internal jugular veins, as well as the subclavian vein. So this is a really nice picture. The lymphatic system is a completely separate system from our blood circulatory system. However, they both wind up working together and coming together at the end. So a backup in one will often result in a backup of the other. We need them both to be working efficiently. What we don't see in this picture are our regional lymph nodes. So we're always traveling up towards the heart, towards the terminus, or if you're talking about the head, traveling down towards the terminus. We're talking about the body today. The lymph nodes gather in four main areas. Those are the armpits, the groin area, our abdomen, where our internal organs are, as well as our head and neck. So four main areas. It is always going to flow to the regional lymph nodes. So from your legs into your lymph nodes in your groin or your inguinal lymph nodes, from your trunk, either down towards the lymph nodes in the groin or up towards the axillary lymph nodes in our armpits. And then everything will flow deeply into that main large green vessel you see on your screen called our thoracic duct. There are actually two thoracic ducts, a right and a left, which will travel into that terminus area. So all flow is moving in one direction towards these two spots at the end of the system. Now we have to understand how lymph flows. We understand where it's flowing, but how does it flow? Well, lymphatic flow is mostly passive, which means it's going to happen whether or not we're working at it or whether or not we're thinking about it. When there is a lymphedema, lymphatic flow is significantly decreased. But again, in normal circumstances, lymph will move by pressure differentials within our body, which draw the lymphatic fluid into our lymphatic system at the beginning. The lymphatic vessels have smooth muscle within them so that they contract along the vessel in order to make that lymph flow in one direction. The lymph vessels do have valves in order to promote that fluid flow in only one direction and to prevent backflow. And nearby pulsation of arteries and veins will also help promote lymph flow in only one direction. So I'm going to talk about this briefly in a moment, but when you have your lymphatic vessels, and I'm talking about pumping down the length of the vessel, the area between one set of lymphatic valves and the next set of lymphatic valves is called a lymphangion. And each lymphangion has a lot of smooth muscle in it, and it is strongest right in the middle section between those two valves. So the muscle contraction is strongest there, really helping push that lymph fluid